Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan here with a screenwriter's rant on a Gravitas Ventures film called The King's Daughter. And they're spending some big money on this. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Please check out my books. Links in the description. Comedy horror in South Jersey, The Pineys, if you'd like to support and get Little Joan a treat. Right, Little Joan? Right, Little Joan? Anyhow, this is The King's Daughter. And they have sent her to a convent, and they call her back. And there's a great line in here. She says, "What? Where am I going?" And the nun says, "To a," I think the word was something like glittery and a lavish hell. So she leaves the convent and goes. That's what's her name? What's his name? Hurt. I think his last name's Hurt. I forget his name. Anyhow. Comes out in January. She goes to the Palace of Versailles, so I guess they're all French. And I don't know. I don't think it's based on any historical thing because you'll see in a minute the fantastical element. But Pierce Bronsan apparently is the king, the French king. Look at his hair. That's pretty funny. But this seems to be a movie where Pierce Bronsan is slumming it. This doesn't appear to be a movie. Now, he gives a good performance. I'll tell you that. He always gives 100%. I'm not knocking him. But this feels like a movie where he'd be slumming it. But Gravitas did kick up their budget. I mean, this had to cost them a fortune between the costumes and the special effects and everything. So bottom line is there's a secret lagoon underneath the palace, and there's a mermaid in it. So it's about the king's daughter being friends with the mermaid. Here she is there. And then, of course, she falls in love with this guy. I don't know what his deal is. Probably works for the king. And they're going to kill the mermaid to steal her life force for some reason. Maybe to keep the king alive. I don't know. And then she, of course, wants to rescue the mermaid. The soundtrack is a little too modern for this, I think. It's kind of like, yeah. I don't like that. So that kind of annoyed me. But, so it turns into a fantasy movie. It's so you've got guys and they got guns. So I'm not sure the time period this is supposed to take place. They got flintlocks but they got mermaids. So anyhow, at some point she jumps off a cliff for some reason and then meets the mermaid in the free ocean or meets other mermaids. And it's called The King's Daughter. And let's see if I can just get to the credits. There we go. Okay. Based on the novel The Moon and the Sun by Vondan McIntyre. Screenplay by Barry Berman and James Seamus, looks like. Hard to read with this font. And directed by Sean McNamara. So, all separate people there, right? You don't see that a lot, right? Usually a director is like a co-writer. And then the novelist sometimes works on the screenplay. Now, I don't know how old the book is. Maybe the book's too old. Maybe the author's passed on. It's a PG movie, so it's more for kids, more for girls, I think. Is it good? That is a tough call here. Gravitas does put out some pretty cool stuff, I'll say. They put out some pretty cool stuff. Usually a lot of risky movies. This feels, though, like a very, very much a money maker. Like, this is a movie that's going to make them big bucks because of the appeal. And it looks like they spent big bucks on the movie. I mean, these costumes aren't cheap. These sets aren't cheap. I mean, they must have shot at some palace. I don't know if they actually shot at Versailles. I don't think that looked like Versailles. Pierce Bronsan doesn't come cheap. Oh, no. He costs money. Ex-James Bond, and, he's older, but Pierce has been in movies. He's been in big movies outside of James Bond. So, so this is a movie that, let's see if I can, so these are some of the other actors. Not sure any of these other guys, but Pierce is big. He's the big name. There's the mermaid. Could show better shots of the mermaid, though, I will say. Um, but this is going to be a romance, and it's PG, and it's going to be about a mermaid and a girl defying her daddy. I mean, this has got you written all over it, ladies. So, and it's got everything you want, everything you want. So let's hit the highlights. Act 1. She's in a convent, probably put there by her dad for punishment for some reason. You know, they did that back in the day, back in the king days. Brings her out. At the end of the second act, she discovers they got a mermaid in the basement, and that maybe palace life isn't so great, but it's nice to be back with her family and her dad, and she's getting approval from her dad. Second act, she becomes friends with the mermaid, but they're going to kill the mermaid for some weird, wacky reason. I don't know what. So she comes up with a plan to free the mermaid and take her out to sea. And she falls in love with a handsome devil who can make that happen for her, or help her anyway. So she somehow convinces the mermaid to go with them. I don't know how they take her out, and then they save her, and then it's about whether or not she'll end up a mermaid. I think it's about whether or not I think she ends up a mermaid at the end of this. I think she joins the mermaids. So either that or she ends up with the guy. But nah, I think she becomes a mermaid. I think she kisses the mermaid, and then that changes her, and she forever is a mermaid and is free in the sea, and blah 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 blah. So, and there'll be music, and you know, I don't think they're singing in the movie. I don't think it's a musical, but way modern soundtrack. Way too modern. Totally aimed at young women. Totally aimed at young women. I wanted to punch out my ears with this soundtrack, but that's just me. It's not aimed at me. It's aimed at young women who want to see romance, wants to see a mermaid, wants to see her dad get what's coming to him. It's always about the dad, right? They always go after the dads in this, like, oh, daddy, you've got too many rules. You have too many rules, and I'm a grown woman, and I can make my own decisions. That's what it's all about. Even before, I'm not saying this is like woke stuff. That's not woke stuff. That's the appeal to women. That's a huge appeal to women. That's why all this YA stuff, this young adult fantasy stuff, it's all there. It's all wrote. And there's nothing wrong with that if you like those stories. This feels a little bit artificial. It's not really historically based, obviously. There's some supernatural elements, some fantasy elements. So they're going to hype it up a little bit. You don't want to go too hard in the paint with that stuff. It gets annoying to anybody outside of, you know, who that really relates to. Pierce Bronsan seems to have a nice understated performance. He's not a, you know, obvious two-dimensional tyrant. So I think that's a big plus for the movie. I think it'll be tolerable because of him. He'll sell it. She's okay. I don't have any strong feelings either way about her performance just in the trailer. She seems functional in it. There's a lot of her jumping in the water for some reason in a full dress. I don't get that, but you know, I think a lot of stuff will happen in a movie like this just because it looks cool and looks romantic, and you know, there's going to be the guy she's in love with, and you know, I think at the end the mermaid will get away and she'll find her true self. Because that's what happens in all these movies. Because it can't be a downer. The worst case scenario, she becomes a mermaid too, and she leaves and never comes back again. But you know, it's got costuming, and it's got a palace, and it's got romance, and it's got a mermaid. So ladies, this is all about you. All about you. Would I see this? Not in a million years. If this was the last movie left on Earth, well, maybe I'd see it. I mean, maybe I'd watch some of it just to see, you know, if Pierce is like chewing the scenery, but I don't think he is. I think he's doing it. He's doing his actor job. He's, you know, he looks good. I think the wig looks funny on him, but he is, you know, he's not trying to ham it up. He's not doing some big giant, you know, evil king character to make it worse. He's making it subtle. So I think in that respect, it'll be a pretty watchable movie. I think it'll be pretty watchable. So if you're stuck watching this, It's called The King's Daughter. Comes out in January. I assume in theaters. Probably go right to video. It feels like a digital download to me. I was almost said rental, but now it's digital download. But I think it can do a lot worse. So, yeah, meh. Anyhow, that's it for me. Tony D and Little Joan will see you